Hey there everyone, how's it going? So this is a little short stream with a bit of a test preview kind of thing really of our Rogue Drones game that we accidentally started making a few weeks ago. I say accidentally because it was really something that kind of started as one of those discussions you have over Christmas when everyone's had a few beers and all of this airport business was happening in the UK, where basically like Gatwick and Heathrow got shut down because random drones appeared apparently, and we said, oh yeah, we should make a game like where you have to defend your airport from drones. Yeah, and then this kind of happened because I was meant to be doing something else and then was procrastinating. So yeah, it's just like a really early prototype at the minute. I mean, I put alpha here, but it's kind of way before that really. So we've worked on it for a few days really at this point, if you actually add up the time. But these days everyone likes to kind of post GIFs and videos and things like that. So I thought maybe a cheeky stream of it just whilst I'm having a bit of a play about. So yeah, this is the concept really. Is basically that you're like a airport security guy who that your airport is about to get closed down because all of these drones have appeared, but no one is willing to pay for you to actually have any proper kit to sort it out. So you decide to improvise and duct tape a stun gun to the top of your own drone and then fly around trying to zap down the other drones because why not? We thought we'd kind of go for the light-hearted comedy route rather than anything too serious. So yeah, that's about the size of it. Right, okay. Now, the eventual plan is to do a few different kind of modes with this, so things like races and stuff. But the thing we're working on mostly now is airspace defense. Although I feel like we'd probably have to call that something else, just because it make localization easier. Defense with a C, with an S, depending on whether you're UK or US. So here we go. So as I say, just a really early prototype at the moment. We've just got some things like basically player control of a drone. My amazing modelling skills here. This was the drone was actually made by me, which is why it looks a bit pants really. So I can kind of control this by tilting. I mean, it's sort of like a real drone. We're not completely trying to simulate the physics of how a drone flies. I did test that out, but it wasn't quite as much fun really. So this is sort of a slightly kind of cheating way of doing it. But the gist is, it's kind of like a combination of what you'd expect a drone to fly like, crossed with Flappy Bird. So, for example, as soon as I take my thumb off the throttle here, I start falling back down. But if I kind of slam it on, I end up going high quite quickly, or I can reverse throttle to bring myself down. And then, in order to actually move, you have to tilt in the direction you want to go and apply some thrust. So the idea here being, you can sort of choose to go forward very fast but at the expense of height, or you can go up very fast at the expense of forward motion. Well, I say forward, obviously you can go back, sideways, whatever. So whereas with an actual drone they do things like compensate for how much you're tilting forward, this one doesn't, just because it kind of made it a bit more fun, a bit more of a challenge. So yeah, we've got some player control going, and it's pretty fun. You can kind of swoop around a bit, get a bit of speed going on, and swoosh past stuff, and then kind of make fancy turns, try and skim along the floor. Although floor collisions are a little bit weird at the minute, it does tend to kind of spin you around if you hit the floor too fast. So I'll try to avoid doing that. And we've also got a sort of AI type drone. You can see these have got like a little bit of debugging information on for me. I can see what type of drone it is and how much health it has. So the idea with this is they are actually kind of from a design development point of view, they're the same drone as this, except my drone has some behaviour on it that allows me to control it with a controller. Oh, I should say, actually, I'm driving this with a 360 controller here, so I have tilt on the left stick and thrust and rotate on the right stick. And our AI, I say in quotes, because it's really quite basic, just simulates the way that I drive a drone using these sticks. So basically they'll try and kind of tilt in the direction they need to go, and then thrust towards it, and then sometimes panic slightly and overcompensate, which is why they kind of wibble around slightly. But it works quite well, considering it's very basic. What these enemy drones are doing is actually just sort of moving between various invisible checkpoints, just so it looks like they're kind of buzzing around randomly. Because let's be honest, if you see drones around, they're just kind of buzzing around randomly most of the time, because everyone finds them really hard to drive. So what that AI controller allowed us to do is some quite simple things that work quite effectively. For instance, because the speed of a drone is effectively controlled by how much it tilts, there was a nice easy way to change the maximum speed of drones by just controlling how much they're willing to tilt. So this boy down here, you might see that's labelled as enemy drone 9 fast. He can tilt quite a lot. Ooh, nearly had a collision there. So that one's willing to tilt quite a lot. The red ones are basically almost a bit like boy racers, really. You'll see that it's prioritising speed at the expense of vertical thrust, so it's sort of wibbling up and down slightly. It's trying to tear off to the side as fast as it can, but then occasionally has to pull back to compensate for losing altitude there. So that can tilt to, I forget what the numbers are, maybe 80 degrees. I think that has as much tilt as I do on my drone here. And so then all we did was adjust it, so say a slow drone here, that'll only tilt up to about 45-ish degrees. So it doesn't suffer from, crashed into a lamp, doesn't suffer from the same problem as kind of like wibbling up and down as the fast drone, but it doesn't move quite as fast. And then there's somewhere there are yellow ones that are kind of somewhere in the middle. Can't see any of those. Yeah, there we go. So you get a balanced one as well. And they've got these like nice little sort of engine trails on, just to make them a bit easier to see from a distance. But also you can kind of see kind of like the curves they make as they're swooping around, and it's quite nice. You might have just noticed that one sort of bumped into the building here. So they don't actually have any sort of collision avoidance on them, which at first I thought would make it look a bit unrealistic. But then, when I thought about it, that's actually how I drive a drone. Is it basically just kind of flails around, bumping into stuff? So it almost looks a little bit realistic. So I don't know. I feel like we probably do need to address that in future. But for now, I think it's probably acceptable. What they will do is if they kind of smack face on, kind of flat onto something, they'll get stuck for a bit, but the AI detects that it's not been moving for a while and then picks a different sort of waypoint to go to, so that they'll then just kind of change direction and hopefully get unstuck. Did have problems in the very first version of this, where buildings like this hangar, you'd end up with a drone going in here and then trying to get up into, say, that corner, and then they'd never manage to get back out. But this seems to have sorted that out. Yeah, so the idea is these things are just buzzing around my airport here, and I just need to shoot them down. So let's have a go at this yellow guy here. The idea is, as I said earlier, budget cuts mean we don't have any proper anti-drone tech. We've just got a stun gun duct taped to the top of this drone. So if I get up to this guy, I can fire my stun gun. Oh, hit the ground there, and that knocks him out. You might see if I just come and land by it. At the moment, we've got some debug information on showing sort of how much health they have. Quite why that took 700 damage from that, I don't know. Well, 800, because it had 100 health to start with. But yeah, basically, if you can get a good zap on them, that'll take it out in one hit. So let's see if we can get him there. Oh, easy. See, I make this, and it's still a little bit tricky. There we go. And the idea is, as you might have noticed in the corner, we got a little clock there and a list of, well, a count of how many drones are still active, along with a little radar so you can find them. And, ooh, missed. And you're trying to disable them all as quickly as possible. So at the moment it's almost like kind of a time attack sort of thing. But if you saw the menu earlier, yeah, you know, we might do kind of races, things like that. In fact, I might just kind of get a bit cocky here and see if I can bash into this guy, because if you're feeling very keen, ooh, you can actually try and melee them. But, you know, I'm not quite that good. There we go. Yeah, you take that. Get down. So, yeah, if we think about adding in things like lists of challenges and stuff like that. I mean, as I say, this is all very kind of early prototype stuff at the minute. We only started this maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we've only spent really a few days on it in total so far. So at the minute, it's just still kind of brainstorming, really. But one of the ideas might be to... got away with him. Need to fix that bit of road down there. That's not lined up properly, is it? Yeah, bugs. We might do something like challenges, you know, melee 2 drones. Does it count as a melee if it's just sort of bumping into it in your drone? Just call it impact damage or something, I suppose. So yeah, things like you know, maybe take out 3 drones in one game through a melee, or things like kind of skim the ground without crashing, you know, travel at 20 meters per second at under 5 meters altitude for 10 seconds or something. Ooh, yeah, as I say, they gave you clip the floor, weird things happen. Still need to sort that out. So yeah, that's about the size of it, really. What else we got here? Let's see if we can just clear up this lot. So it's quite an early prototype, but we're sort of throwing in some bits and pieces like sound, just to kind of get a bit of a feel for how it goes. And it's strange how little things like that actually kind of make a big difference, really. The sort of the drone buzzing noise, it's just sort of a minor thing, but kind of it sort of adjusts the pitch as the motors spin up, as you'd expect with a proper drone. We've got like little background noise. You can hear a plane going overhead and sort of general airport sounds, but also little things like, if I try and go past one of those, we've even got sound on the enemy drones, and then you sort of hear them kind of past you, you know, sort of Doppler effect. I mean, I'm making it sound like we put in loads of effort to do that, but this is being built in Unity so far, where basically you just go make this a 3D sound and it handles Doppler and all of that for you. But little things kind of make a big difference, really. So some of these planes that are out here as well, they have engine sound. So you know, as you sort of zoom past them, you get you know, a little bit of a feel for how fast you're going. I mean, as ever with things like this, you kind of sort of fudge the realism a bit, because I mean, really, you should be able to hear those planes from here, just because planes are really loud. But yeah, it's a bit overwhelming if, you know, wherever you are, you kind of got this sort of noise in your ear. But also with them being spread out a bit, you know, we can do things like different sounds for different planes. Got a little sort of turbo prop over here. But yeah, you know, that kind of works pretty well. We've got, the plan is to have like a set of sort of muffled announcements coming out of the terminal building. So we got like a bit of sort of muffle and echo on that. You know, maybe get some sort of comedy tannoy announcements, that kind of stuff. So yeah, as I say, there's no kind of collision avoidance on these. Oh, I did get him actually. But the fact that they just sort of bump into things and bounce off, it is pretty like what's happening in real life when I try and fly a drone. We've just got like a little sort of miniature drone that we've been having a bit of a play about with to get a feel for this. All right, let's try and get this last boy here. Oh, well, maybe I should finish on a melee just to try and be clever. No, oh no, or not. Come on, here we go. Come on, come on. I feel like this one's trolling me. This is just like me driving a drone in real life. I'm just massively overcompensating for everything. There we go. So we managed to get all of those drones just under 14 minutes, but you know, I've been sort of talking through things there. Yeah, as I say, we're kind of going for sort of the light-hearted kind of angle here. With, I mean, it looks like some kind of newspapers, but not mentioning names. Yeah, as I say, we're going to kind of play it quite light-hearted. So things like when you do successfully defeat all of the drones, you get like a slightly sarcastic newspaper basically saying that you were rubbish and should have tried harder. And of course the quotation that papers and things always seem to have about this kind of stuff, they should just get on with it. Yeah, we're in the UK, so we're hearing a lot of those vox pops on the news at the moment. Yeah, so that's about it. I might have a go at trying to actually see how fast I can do one of these, just to prove that I'm not actually that terrible at the game. Oh, there we go, another one sort of bumping into stuff. So can't talk and fly drone. Okay. So one of the things that's quite interesting, or at least from a design point of view, I'm calling it interesting because I haven't quite worked out where I'm going with it yet. Oh, I just missed him. Is that the concept of this, you duct tape a stun gun to your drone, is all well and good, but the problem is, because you steer by tilting, as you, in fact, if I just sort of do an example there, when you shoot the stun gun, it is in the direction that you're pointing, which isn't necessarily straightforward. So there's sometimes a bit of a challenge of trying to kind of get up close to something and then ease off your tilt to make sure that you're actually facing it. And it does sort of add an extra bit of a challenge. So like this guy here, you know, I need to maybe wait. Okay, messed that up. Oh, I was lined up there and everything, it was great. Oh, lamppost. So yeah, the trick is you've got to kind of sort of speed up to them and then kind of take it a little bit easy so you've not got too much tilt. So here I'm going to need to kind of just sort of edge up on this one so I can be pointing at it. Oh no, he's changing direction. There we go. Or alternatively, if you're feeling keen, the trick does seem to be as well going sideways, because then you can still point forwards. Let's see, let's try it with this one. You can still point forwards whilst actually moving in a direction. So here, even though I'm tilted to the side, my gun is going to be pointing forwards. So, well, that was just terrible, but you get the idea. Oh. Yeah, I've got sort of, in terms of range of this, the gun fires about 5 meters in terms of actual game meters. The drone is about, I forget how big it is because I changed the scale of it. The drone's about half a meter or maybe 75 centimeters long. So it's sometimes a little bit difficult to judge exactly how far away something can be. Now the idea of the radar there is the inner ring is allegedly the range of my stun gun. So as long as the blob for the drone is within there, I'm in business. But I have just... oh, perfect. Yeah, a little flyby there. Nice. So I have just made some minor changes to that, so I think it's not quite accurate. In fact, I should probably make it scale automatically based on the current kind of range of your stun gun. But with the logic being that we could potentially add in things like multiple drones that you can choose from. Maybe one doesn't accelerate as fast, but it does have better range. You know, maybe one can turn faster, but doesn't have, I don't know, as much health. Yeah, as you might have noticed, in fact, if I just start this again, I'm kind of, you know, flying around bashing into stuff, and it doesn't actually into things as well. Doesn't actually harm my drone. Everything's fine, but we'd like to get maybe some health on there, so make it a bit more interesting for if you do these kind of like swooping down and just skimming the edge of the ground. You know, you've actually got a consequence for failing there. I do wonder if we need to let the enemy drones take damage as well if they bump into things, but then it kind of almost spoils it when you see one of them just kind of face planting into the side of a building, like maybe this one's about to do. Oh no, it's going to miss. Oh no, here we go. Plop. Because, as I say, that's pretty much how I draw a drone, how I drive a drone. So it almost seems a shame having them not do that. You know, you could just sort of sit around, wait for them to just knock each other out by just bumping into things. Trouble with this one. Where are we? Come on. No. A bit closer. No. So we've got like a little bit of scenery around here as well. There we go. Things like little runway signs and you know, sort of a luggage truck, would you call it? I don't know. Hang on, that bit of road isn't joined up properly as well. Oh no, that's the same bit actually, isn't it? Okay, I'll fix that in a minute. Oh wow, people are actually here now. I just babbling away to myself there. Hello Wraith, hello Amber, how's it going? Yeah, if you've just tuned in, I have been just kind of babbling about this. Yeah, basically we've only really, if you add the time up, spent a couple of days on it so far. But you know, it's looking alright, it's kind of fun. As anyone from the UK will realise, yeah, it's basically what happened at Gatwick and Heathrow over Christmas here. Drones were flying around, and then, yeah, basically the airport shut down because everybody had a massive panic about it. So we've kind of gone for a bit of a comedy angle on that, with the idea of your airport security, you haven't got any budget to buy anti-drone tech, so instead you duct tape a stun gun to the top of your own drone and then just sort of fly around zapping things. So, where'd he go? So I can try and get in front of this and shoot it down. So yeah, as I say, sort of all very early prototype stuff here, with my lovely handmade drones here. You can tell they don't entirely match everything else because that is something that we've bought in, all of these airport assets, to save a bit of time. I quite like it though, you know, like this sort of kind of crossy road style stuff. You know, it works quite well. Oh, thank you for the host there, Wraith, as well. Yeah, we, as I say, everything's just kind of like kind of placeholders at the minute, so we haven't really done much thinking in the way of sound yet. But we'll, yeah, we'll have to have a think about that. Yeah, I kind of exist in a complete state of what's the worst that can happen. Well, a near complete state of what's the worst that can happen. So sometimes we do crazy things, and we're actually going to take this to a show at the start of April. So you know, why not? YOLO and all that. So yeah, I guess I need to kind of start thinking about audio next month, really. But yeah, we'll you know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, so this is kind of mostly me just sort of floating around here, trying to actually kind of shoot these things and kind of see how our flight system works. Oh, thank you for the follow there, Amber. Yes, I suppose I never really do anything on my channel aside from the odd bit of Fortnite with Ferret, so I don't really have any serious followers on here. Everyone's following Interference, which is where all of the fun stuff like the quiz happens. But yeah, you know, maybe I'll start doing some stuff like this. See, I can't play my own game, you know. There we go. I got you. So yeah, it's as I say, it's quite kind of early on, but it feels quite fun. One of the interesting things about doing bits of game dev is you get to play games as research, which is always a nice excuse. Oh, I've just realised it's actually getting really dark here. There we go, I should put my light on. It's a little bit better. Slightly. Yeah, you get to play games as research, so I spent a little bit of time playing Watch Dogs 2 the other day, which clipped into the ground there, which had a drone in, and yeah, so their drone kind of physics, flight system, I don't know what you call it really, was quite easy really, in that the drone sort of hovers, if I can make this hover somehow. The drone just kind of hovers, and then you have a button for up, down, and forward and back, whereas ours is more actual physics based, like a drone. So I'm just controlling this using a 360 controller. So on the right stick, I can push to do thrust, up and down, and rotate, or I can tilt the drone with the other stick. And the idea is, whenever you're thrusting, it goes in the direction that it's pointing. So rather than just kind of hovering and waiting for things to come to you, you've got to kind of keep your thumb on the thrust. You know, if you go too hard, it goes too high. If you don't do enough, you start falling down. It's basically drone meets Flappy Bird kind of thing. But it's quite fun. You know, you can kind of like do all of these, you know, you can like sort of swoop along and then kind of pull up and spin around and things. And yeah, you know, it's quite fun, especially for, you know, sort of like a half-done prototype really. And then the idea being, as I say, you're gonna shoot these things that are around. At the minute, we're just doing simple things like it spawns 10 drones. How long does it take you to get them? And this is the last one, I think. Oh no, almost. There we go. And then we've got a timer, so you get sort of like a score in terms of how long it takes you to do. Yeah, you know, like time attack basically. And we'll be able to play with the flight stick. Well, the interesting thing about how we've done this is the drone flight system is sort of a self-contained unit, and we can make control plugins for it, as it were. So I mean, if I just kind of start this again, so my control method that I'm using at the moment, I've got a plugin for the 360 controller, so dual sticks, dual analog sticks, and a trigger. Nice and easy, you know, left stick tilt, right stick thrust. But I've written one for keyboard and mouse, which is actually well, keyboard so far, which is really hard. So I can do thrust and rotate with cursor keys, and tilt with your standard sort of WASD keys over here. But it's quite difficult because obviously you can't kind of go half tilt or half thrust, so you've got to kind of pulse things a bit more, and it's a bit more awkward. But what we should be able to do is then write a control system to use a stick, perhaps. I mean, because ultimately a stick it's just like a joystick. Well, it is a joystick. Obviously, it's a stick. And we're just reading sort of the axes of movement from that. I mean, just like the sticks on a 360 controller. And same with thrust. You know, we just read in whatever the thrust is there. Yeah, I don't know how you do rotate on that. I suppose if you had a stick with a hat, perhaps you know, set that for rotate. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have a think about that. The original idea was we were going to be doing this for the left field collection at Rest. Most sticks have some rotation. Fair enough. I haven't used a flight stick since I played a bit of Elite Dangerous in VR, I think, at EGX years ago. But yeah, so we were going to be doing this for the Left Field collection at Rest, which is basically a collection of weird prototype stuff. So the original idea was this was going to be kind of a bit like, Surgeon Simulator, QWOP, that kind of thing, like that game where you like press Q, W, O and P to make the guy run. So it was going to be deliberately hard controls with kind of like an actual drone controller wired up to the PC. But then when I tightened the controls up a bit, it actually got quite fun. So hence why it's a little bit more sensible now. But yeah, flight sticks, get a thrust on there. I mean, it could work actually. I feel like a twin stick controller is probably more authentic, if you would, for controlling a drone. But yeah, why not let people do? Oh, good accidental melee there. Why not let people use whatever control they want? Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about mouse for tilt as well. Maybe we could do kind of thrust with left hand tilt on the mouse, that kind of thing. Mouse button to shoot. Because of the way that this control system works, the enemy drones are actually just red copies of my drone, but they have a very basic AI, in quotes, it's not really that intelligent, just simulating the inputs basically that I would do if I wanted to drive it. So it's not just kind of directly moving around. These drones, if I just kind of follow one, there's actually a set of invisible checkpoints that they're moving between. So they'll try and head to one checkpoint and then pick another one that they want to go to. Sometimes it'll mean that they kind of get stuck somewhere, and then hopefully, this should be a good test, this one will realise, actually I'm not moving anywhere, and then it'll start cycling through other checkpoints until it finds one that it can actually reach. Yeah, there we go. I do wonder if we should kind of have collision avoidance there to stop them bumping into things, but I think it's kind of funny because that's what happens whenever I try and fly our drone, is I pretty much constantly almost crash into the wall. But yeah, in terms of driving, so what this is doing is it's picked I think it's just hovering around a checkpoint here, and then it'll zoom off in a minute. Yeah, there we go, it's picked another one. So it's just sort of trying to tilt towards where it's going, and then thrust as appropriate. So essentially exactly what I'm doing here. So we've got like a nice little AI system without that much work. So would multiplayer be an option? Well, the short answer, yes, because I think that would be quite good fun. We have a small amount of funding for working on this, probably enough to cover me doing this for Rest, so up to the start of April, and then based on the feedback we get there, it might be that we kind of add in more stuff. It might be that we just kind of tidy it up and release it because we don't have any more resources for it. But yeah, I've got plans for it. If we can get the money, or if people are showing enough interest that we think we'd be able to recoup it, I'm thinking things like so we got this sort of airspace defense mode, perhaps something where you're a rogue drone and you're having to evade the security drones, so almost like a how long can you last whilst being pursued kind of thing. Maybe sort of races as well through checkpoints, which I've kind of half implemented just as a test. Multiplayer would be very cool. In my head, we haven't really planned this out at all, but in my head, maybe something along the lines of a sort of like a vampire mode, British Bulldog kind of thing. Let's say 10 players, 9 are rogue drones and 1 is a security drone. They have to go and disable rogue drones. As they disable a player's drone, that player then respawns as another security drone. So gradually the balance shifts from the rogue team to the security team. So if you're the best rogue, then it will get gradually harder because there'll be more and more people after you, and you'll be kind of all storming around, and there'll be, you see all of the people chasing you on your radar, and like, oh, hang on, this is me trying to show off flying. No, hit the floor. There we go. And you might sort of try and duck through small spaces so they don't follow you and things like that. Yeah, I really need to sort out this thing where the camera flicks around when you clip the floor. But I feel like it could be quite fun multiplayer. And as ever, because you all know that I'm really into it, something to do with mixed play. I don't know. I'm thinking about adding in some sort of kind of environmental force generation system, basically wind. And then we could have things so if you're streaming and you're connected to mixed play, the audience could maybe vote to make there be wind, you know, a storm or something. And you'd sort of be kind of buffeted around, and you're kind of, you know, you're all like this as you're trying to sort of steer into it, and maybe it would end up making you kind of overcompensate. You know, you've got a headwind or a tailwind, you might end up going faster than you mean and overshoot, and then you got to kind of backpedal. So things like that could be quite fun. I feel like mixed play integration takes some fun out of it. Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be optional. But yeah, as you say, the problem with things like that is getting the balance right. So it's kind of a bit of fun, but the viewers can't just kind of ruin it for you. If anyone played original Watch Dogs, just try and get this guy because he came too close to me and I want some vengeance. Yeah, if anyone played I totally hit that. Bad colliders. There we go. If anyone played the original Watch Dogs, that had this sort of tablet companion app, CTOS Mobile, where one person would be in the main game doing a race, and they'd have to like drive through checkpoints in a car. And the person on a tablet was able to do things like, well, it was Watch Dogs, so you know, hack traffic lights to try to make it difficult for the driver to get through, or dispatch police cars after them. So, you know, there's the potential we could do things like, if we had a sort of evasion mode, mixed play viewers could choose to deploy like extra AI security drones, or maybe a particularly big drone or a fast drone or something like that, or you know, kind of radio interference so your controls are a bit slower. Because thinking about this from kind of a business point of view and a kind of a virality point of view, if you would, with Mixer and Mixplay, because there can be a spark cost attached to interactions like that, we're wondering if partners who effectively get paid when their viewers use sparks, if they would see a game which encouraged players to spend sparks to do things like maybe make there be a bit of a crosswind for 10 seconds, or spawn a drone, or I don't know, mess with your controls or whatever, but messing with your controls would cost, I don't know, 1,000 sparks or something. Would that mean that partners would be interested in streaming the game, which, you know, generates free buzz for us, because they'll be getting sparks out of it? So, you know, it might be worth looking into. But, you know, if we did mixed play or anything like that, it'd be optional. And I think, as I've probably said when talking about interference before as well, the thing about Mixer and Mixed Play is it's like really easy to add it in, because the SDK is amazing. So I'm trying to focus and actually do things in order on our list, so I haven't done it yet, but, you know, I could probably stick that in an afternoon or something. It would be interesting. But yeah, you know, like multiplayer races as well, that could work perhaps. I did a multiplayer drone race in Watch Dogs 2 the other day, just to see what that was like. Except I didn't get to do a drone race because everyone voted to do a bike race, which was a shame, but, you know, never mind. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's about it really. As I say, I'm just kind of trying to get a bit of extended time playing this, because normally I just do it for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, so I'm testing something. But I'm just trying to kind of get a feel for sort of how well the kind of the physics of flying around works, and if anything weird happens, like apparently there's a load of drones here, but I can't see where they are. Are you hiding in this shed or whatever? Ah, here we go. I think they're actually stuck in here. Oh, okay, yeah, that's going to be a bit difficult. Okay. at the minute I'm not forcing the camera to stay within buildings. Is there still another one there? No, there's two over there. Yeah, at the minute we're not kind of pushing the camera around as you go into buildings, just because it, well, as I say, we've only been working on it for a few days, but it, yeah, it might be something that we need to do. It does almost feel a bit cheeky if you can kind of poke your head into buildings without any consequences. There he is over there. I was also wondering if we needed some sort of UI kind of separate from the radar, kind of showing where drones are, like maybe a little dot over them in the actual view, just so that you can see them from a distance a bit easier. But then again, you know, we don't want it to be too hard. Ah, that's what he was behind me when I was in here. Oh, no, missed. In a bit further. I mean, one of the other choices that we've made at the moment, partially to make it easier, and partially because it was making me feel a bit motion sick. So there you go. Finally, after talking a lot, nearly 13 minutes to do 10. Seems a bit poor, really. I think I could probably do 3 minutes if I was concentrating. But yeah, one of the decisions that we made is just to kind of have this camera that's fixed, so we don't really tilt or anything when the drone moves. We sort of lock the camera to the rotation of the drone, but tilt doesn't affect it at all. So it can be a little bit difficult to look up into corners if there's one kind of trapped somewhere. But as I say, I did mess about with that, and it just kind of ended up making me really motion sick. So I think this is probably the way to go. I did have a brief, well, I say brief, it was about a week actually, a small episode where I thought I was actually having vertigo attacks all the time, because I was just feeling really rough. And initially I thought it was because we're doing some decorating here, and I was looking up a lot, which last time we painted the lounge gave me vertigo. And I kind of had a similar feeling. And then eventually I realised it's actually when I've been testing this, I've been running it on my second monitor, which involves me sitting with my head kind of to the side, and then playing this with my head tilted to the side was making me sick. But I actually spent a couple of days debugging the game, trying to figure out what on earth I'd done. But no, it was actually just me sitting in a ridiculous way. In fact, if I hang out around here for a bit, we might even have a little tannoy announcement inside. There we go. It's interesting how just adding a little bit of sound can make a good difference to things like this. We've got some sort of ambient noise of like planes going overhead and the buzzing of the drones with Doppler effects. So if I kind of swoosh past that one, you can kind of, oh, he's stuck on the plane there. You can kind of tell the speed that you're going across. It works quite nicely. It just sort of gives it a little bit of extra atmosphere without too much more work, to be honest. It's always strange. I mean, any of you who've seen the other things that we've done, like interference, etc., they're not kind of audio-based games, so it's not something I generally think about that much. But as soon as we threw in these ambient sounds, it kind of really added to this. If you didn't see earlier as well, we got things like engine noises on some of the planes. An aiming reticule. Yeah, now there was an aiming reticule on here until about, I don't know, 2 hours ago when I took it back out. You can't quite see the charge gauge in the bottom left, but if I just sort of zap, you can see that happening there. But that was originally in the centre of the screen with a reticule, and then the drone was sort of dropped down a little bit. But the issue with that is because of the actual shot happening at the angle that the drone's at, so like if you can see my little zap effect kind of pointing up or down, well, down is probably better. If I'm tilted, the reticule then needs to move for that to make sense, and short answer is the maths gets all weird, and I hadn't figured out how to get it to look right, so I took it out just before doing this. But yeah, it was a little bit. Oh, I haven't actually got a pointer here because it disables the pointer. But yeah, if you imagine a reticule in the centre of the screen, it was all well and good when you're sort of heading towards something, but you'd sort of then fire and it wouldn't actually kind of make contact as you'd expect. A bit of turboprop noise there. So yeah, you know, as I say, that's kind of it really. I'm just sort of trying to see how this feels. It does actually, you know, I'm quite pleased with it for something that we haven't put that much in terms of resources into. It you know, it feels quite nice. It's quite tight actually. The controls on this, as I say, need to sort out the business with clipping into the ground. But when you do it, you know, when you sort of pull off like a nice turn or a swoosh down or whatever, you know, it feels pretty cool. Yeah, you know, I'm kind of pleased with it. Something akin to War Thunder's aiming system. I don't think I've played that or seen anyone on it, but I'm wondering if you basically mean something that effectively added to the aircraft model. Interesting. That could kind of work. So almost like sort of iron sights for it, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, hang on, that could work. Although I guess we'd have to have the camera actually... Yeah, I wonder if with that would kind of mean having to tilt the camera as well. Yeah, worth having a look at. Yeah, now the problem with free camera is then I worry that it would make the current control system far too weird. As I say, with Watch Dogs, that just had, you know, forward, back, left, right, and buttons. I think it was the bumpers, R1, L1, for up and down, because your right stick was used for free camera, so you could spin around. Whereas our camera is tied to the drone, and then we use the other axis of the stick for thrust. I was wondering if we should have something like maybe you hold down a key and then you could have free aim, but then again, because of the sort of the model we're using for how the drone handles, as soon as I'm not putting thrust onto it, it's falling out the sky. So then we'd maybe have to do something like, you know, if you're holding down, I don't know, R1 or whatever, right bumper, it would maybe kind of automatically hover whilst you took a shot. I don't know. Yeah, triggers for thrust did occur to me. I don't know, I almost felt like it would be sort of a bit more tiring doing that. I mean, as I say, the original sort of model for it was based on our little drone that we've got here that has this this exact model. Well, I say this exact model, the sticks are actually flipped, which confuses me greatly when I switch to testing the actual drone. Left for back, forward and strafing, right for rotating left and right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's almost like what the Watch Dogs model was basically, and I felt like it was too easy. But we're, as I said earlier, we're sort of coming at this from the point of view that we were going to make a deliberately awkward game, and then it's kind of maybe not sort of going that way. It's maybe kind of going a bit more sensible, like what games used for helicopters. Yeah, exactly. That was my initial thought for if we were doing it sensibly. And this current control system was almost an artifact of trying to make something that's a bit difficult, but then it kind of works pretty well actually. You know, you can kind of get a bit of fine control, but it does add a little bit of a challenge, especially with this thing of needing to kind of get up to something and then make sure you're actually pointing at it when you take the shot. You couldn't just kind of zoom straight up to something and shoot it. You should be pointing the wrong way. You need to make sure you're pointing the right way. You know, and then the thought occurs, well, should it be actually the shot just happens in the direction that you're looking at? But in terms of in-game lore and all this, this is supposed to be a stun gun duct tape to a drone, so it wouldn't make sense if there was actually independent control of that. But I mean, it kind of depends on what sort of angle we go for with it, really. If we oh, that was a good shot. If we keep it kind of sensible, or if we keep it, maybe not so sensible, or if we try and make it a bit more serious. I feel like, with kind of the sort of almost cartoony feel that we've got here, we need it to sort of be not too serious and not too precise handling. Otherwise, there's almost sort of a bit of kind of disparity between how it feels. That's not the word I'm looking for. Dissonance between sort of how it looks and how it handles. But yeah, we just needed to experiment with these things, really. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about doing, in fact, if I just kind of get one of these up again. Oh, I'll come to that in a moment. At the moment we're just modelling this drone as like a very simple physics-based object. So we're just applying one thrust in the direction that it's pointing. But I am messing about with actually trying to model a proper drone. So each of the motors generating its own thrust. So we could do things like, let me just go find one to shoot down here. So at the moment, if I shoot down this guy here, if I try and get like a good angle on it, you can see we apply a little bit of force to it. Or in fact, if I just kind of land near it and do it again, we apply a bit of force when you shoot or bump into one of these. If we modelled the engine separately, we could do stuff like trigger a malfunction in one engine or something, so that stops spinning or goes the other way, and then that might cause sort of crazy physics-based crashes and things, which might be quite fun. But I kind of tested this out last week, or maybe it was at the weekend. See here, we're just kind of faking turning down the drag on things so they can spin around a lot. And it just didn't feel right when I did it. But I think my angular momentum wasn't being calculated quite correctly. So maybe have another look at that. But yeah, random headlines on the end card. Yeah, that's the idea. So depending on how you do, and then also with a bit of randomization thrown in, you'd get maybe different headlines. Like if you took a long time to do it, however long that actually works out, I don't know, maybe more than 20 seconds per drone, the headline would be more insulting, basically. What do we pay these fools for? That kind of stuff. Or if you did it really quickly, it would still be a bit sarcastic because it's that kind of newspaper, if you know the kind of, know the paper that we're implying. They wouldn't ever say anything good about you. Maybe airport security clear the drones in 1 minute, but still this shouldn't have happened, all that kind of thing. Yeah, the bit about the dog, that kind of stuff as well, because it's the type of paper we're going for. That was just the first thing that came to mind, so yeah, maybe a load of random nonsense like that. Well, I mean, you say satire, but sometimes it's difficult to tell. If you like The Onion and things like that, these days it's very difficult to tell what's actually satire and what's actually happening in the world. But yeah, these three foods will make your dog bald or whatever. But yeah, just sort of random clickbait. I forget what we used to call clickbait before it was online. But yeah, the hard copy version of clickbait. And just sort of random stuff like that. I like the idea of getting kind of things in where people will be like, hang on, what did that say? What? Yeah, junk mail, I suppose. Yeah. I feel like there used to be a word for if it was in a paper, like something along the lines of like some sort of strap line that makes you want to open it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there are words, but yeah, let's not go there. So I like the idea of having sort of random ridiculous things like that in like crazy, like either insulting headlines in the paper, sort of vaguely insulting headlines in the paper, regardless of how well you do, they always find something to criticise. These ridiculous stories, you know, oh, inside on page 10, you know, whatever, you know, the 3 types of cheese that are most likely to crash your car or whatever nonsense, I don't know, or kind of comedy tannoy announcements. So yeah, we're just sort of testing muffling sound and things there, and yeah, you know, it could be quite fun, you know, like flights leaving for random places, or you know, comedy place names. Now it's time for the greatest compliment. Okay. What was I going to say about tannoy announcements? Yeah, like when we go to the gym, they have that song on by that guy. Is it Dizzy Rascal? I don't know. That guy who has so many he has so many clothes he has to keep some at his aunt's house, and all these terrible rhymes. I've been to Southampton, but I've never been to Scunthorpe. So, you know, we might have, like, you know, flight AB123 to Southampton, leaving from gate 1. Please note this flight does not call at Scunthorpe, and, you know, random stuff like that. The way the propellers always end up in perfect symmetry. Yeah, well, this is drones, you see. It looked weird. I didn't think about it at first, but originally they spun the same way, and it looked wrong, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then when I fired up the actual drone, I realised, hang on, because of physics, because of angular momentum and all this, the opposing rotors go in the same direction. In fact, let's just get on the floor. The opposing rotors go in the same direction, but the others go in the opposite direction, so that it doesn't kind of spin uncontrollably. Yeah, counter-rotation, because otherwise your angular momentum doesn't cancel out. Yeah, exactly. So otherwise you'd end up spinning. So on an actual drone, that's how you do rotation. Is it throttles down one opposing pair of rotors, and increases the rotation of the other pair of rotors, which then causes an imbalance in angular momentum, which makes the entire thing start to spin round sideways. Yeah, exactly. Like why you need the back rotor on a helicopter, like your cyclic, stopping it from kind of spinning off. I mean, you can get kind of counter-rotating dual-blade helicopter systems, which presumably are even more complicated, which is why you don't see them, but they balance out their own rotation. Yeah, like a Chinook, although that's like a sort of a separate blade thing. I gather it's possible to get something where you have like a smaller secondary blade under your... I mean, I don't even know how that works. Maybe it's not a blade, maybe it's just something that rotates to cancel the momentum, because if you had 2 opposing blades, you'd cancel out your thrust. That would be crazy. Yeah, impractical, exactly. It's kind of like that, you know, helicopter bike Leonardo da Vinci did, probably, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm glad someone noticed that. It's a it's a nice little touch. But yeah, as I say, I was tempted to kind of accurately model the physics of this. So at the moment, I'll be honest with you, it just fakes rotation by just forcibly rotating the drone. But it would be interesting to model the physics separately for each rotor, and then use that to apply the angular momentum. But only if it feels fun. And of course, this is the problem, is sometimes realistic things aren't fun. I mean, having said that, like, you know, the physics on here, yeah, realism DLC. I mean, basically we just fiddle with the numbers a bit. The kind of the gravity on this, well, the gravity on this is technically realistic, in that it's actually just that the drone is really light. It you know, it feels like it falls a little bit too slowly, but that part of the logic behind that being, we didn't want it to be too difficult if you're sort of lining up a shot. Like as soon as you take your hand off the thrust, like on our actual drone, you know, as soon as you take your hand off the thrust, it's like immediately straight down like that. Whereas with this, you kind of got a little bit of leeway, so you can kind of like, you know, pop out and there we go. Did I get him? No, maybe I didn't. You know, you've got a bit more leeway with it. It makes it a bit more fun. Just failing. There we go. Changes enough to be noticed. Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah, you know, we could just kind of say, oh yeah, we've now tuned this, so using realistic rotor physics, and then, you know, just leave it the same, just make some sort of visible change, but keep the physics the same. But yeah, you know, I'm quite pleased with it. It feels quite nice. I suppose the real test is going to be, well, two things. Is going to be, one, can we actually get this into a semi-decent form by the start of April, which, you know, is going to be interesting. Come here, you. And also, will people think it's any good? Or at least, you know, have any kind of legs to it beyond 5 minutes. How quickly can Wraith break it? Well, yeah, of course, this is the thing. I mean, well, Ferret's had a copy a few times and managed to clip through the floor. I think I've found where that might happen, actually, because there's something here that's not joined up right. I guess you could probably try and skid into there. I do need to fix this thing where it sometimes just sort of tilts into the floor. I've just got some... Yeah, I think it's if you're... No, there's some kind of logic to it. Somehow you can... Yeah, if you turn on your thrust at the same time as tilting, when you're initially stationary, you can get stuck in the floor, but otherwise... you do just kind of stand up. Oh, I don't know. Something. Yeah, early beta. It's not even a beta, it's a prototype. But yeah, that's part of the idea of maybe trying to get it in front of some people, see if anyone else thinks it's actually fun, and see what breaks, take a notepad, write these things down, and get some sort of early feedback. Yeah, as I say, we kind of got a bit of funding for this to cover us up to rest, basically. So if it looks popular, then maybe we do a bit more. But otherwise, maybe we just kind of wrap it up and just do like a little basic release. You know, get it on itch or something like that. But I mean, it feels quite fun. You know, I like it. You have these kind of cool, dramatic moments where, like, you know, you almost touch the floor, and then you zoom past one of these, and you hear the Doppler effect of the engines and all that. Yeah, you know, it's quite cool. It's almost one of these kind of simple to kind of pick up, but then as you get more of a feel for it. I mean, how long have I been doing this? Oh my word, I've been talking about this for an hour. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm just capable of babbling nonsense for ages. Once you've spent a bit of time on it, you kind of get a bit better at it, he says, as he just completely misses that one. But yeah, this is like the longest I've spent on it, if I'm honest. Normally I've only done a few minutes at a time. It's, yeah, you know, it kind of works. So I mean, I won't actually show off the race thing, because it's only sort of really basic implementation of a few checkpoints floating around, and it just kind of picks them at random. Oh well, you know, why not? What's the worst that can happen? I just wanted to sort of test. Okay, no, that's broken entirely. Because I put on it's tracking to see how many enemy drones there are. Oh wow, something just went really wrong with my physics there. All of those drones on the menu just zoomed up out of the way. Wow, okay, that was weird. Huh. There you go. Wow. Prototypes. Yes, I was building the race system with the end game detection disabled, so it was quite happily working with there being no drones. But there it was waiting. It's counting how many enemy drones there are, and then stops the game when there's none of them left. So yeah, I guess I need to adjust that before actually testing the race system. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that kind of feels like maybe a good point to stop, seeing as I've been talking about this for an hour, and I said, oh, I might just do a short stream on this. So yeah, that's that's how this thing works for the moment. Yeah, if anyone's interested in that, feel free to check out roguedronesgame.com. I should probably just pop that in the chat. I need to spell one of my problems. I keep saying Rouge Drones. Oh, thank you. Well, you've done it, so I just spelt Rouge Drones again. But yes, thank you for that, Wraith. roguedronesgame.com. There's a mailing list on there you can get on if you want, or Rogue Drones on Twitter. And we're just going to sort of trickle out bits of information about this, really. But we're still going to be doing kind of critical things on interference and zeitgeist and all of our other stuff. But as I say, we've got a little bit of cash to work on this for this show, which is kind of one of the ideas of the funding is, okay, here's a bit of cash, take it to Rezzed and see if it'll work. So this is kind of going to be the priority for the next 4 to 8 weeks, really, depending on how it goes. Well, alongside doing a bit of paid work as well, so we can keep paying for it afterwards. But yeah, so it'll be well, we haven't actually paid for the stand yet. We're still waiting to get the details of that. But yeah, it'll be hopefully part of the Tentacle Collective at Rezzed on the 4th of April, I think that is. 5th of April, the start of April, the first weekend of April. If anyone happens to be going to Tobacco Dock in London, we will see you there. But yeah, as I say, if you're interested, join that list on roguedronesgame.com or follow us on Twitter, Rogue Drones. I think we're Rogue Drones Game on Facebook as well. Otherwise, if you follow this channel, then I'll be maybe doing a little weekly playtest of it. I'm not quite confident enough to do an actual live development stream because I have massive imposter syndrome and everyone will think I'm rubbish, frankly, because I'm mostly self-taught and it'll be really embarrassing. But yeah, aside from that, thank you very much for joining me, and yeah, I will see you maybe in a week for another stream of this. Otherwise, if you want to check out some of our other stuff, you could go and check us out on mixer.com/interference, where we have some other interesting interactive things like interactive drawing and an interactive quiz on Sunday even. You can also join us on Discord. Links for all of this in the channel description if you just scroll down. playinterference.com/Discord and talk to us about drones on there. Yes, Sunday, says Wraith. Yes. I don't even know where Friday came from. We don't do anything on Friday. I don't know. Okay, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.